we on, Janine? We're on, thank you.
Councillors, I'll call the meeting to order and thank you for coming to tonight's council meeting. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any member of the public with a disability to vacate the building. Any apologies?
No apologies this evening.
Councillor Duffy for lateness.
Yep.
This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at this council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure that you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administration purposes. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past, present, the Wiradjuri nation, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal Australians who are present. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflicts of interest in any matter for consideration for tonight's council meeting? Councillor Greenhalgh.
I have a significant non-pecuniary interest in item 2.3 of the Planning and Development, the DA for 246 Anson Street, as the applicant is a customer of mine.
So you'll be leaving the room. Thank you. Any others? Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll declare a non-significant non-pecuniary in item 6.1 of the closed agenda as one of the customers, one of the tenderees is one of my customers. God, that come out good. Thank you.
Any Councillor Mallard.
Mr Mayor, yeah, just less than significant non-pecuniary interest in item 2.2 of the Planning and Development Committee, the planning proposal for Bloomfield Medical Centre. My partner works in the Orange Health and Innovation Precinct, as it's labelled, that they say workers will benefit from, but yeah, don't consider it a significant conflict.
Any others? Thank you. Councillors, can I have a permission? Can I have someone move that we dealt with the late item 5.3 policy review subdivision? Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Seconded by Councillor Floyd. All in favour? No one on Zoom. I keep looking up. Yep. Against? Carried. Councillors, I will now adjourn for the open forum. We have one speaker tonight, and that is Sandra Bonham, who wants to speak on Sport and Recreation Policy Committee item 2.2, design for a learn to swim facility at the Orange Aquatic Centre. Sandra, could you come up here if you don't mind, please? I'll just introduce the councillors before you go. That's Councillor Jeff Whitten, Councillor Tammy Greenhalgh, Councillor Mel McDonald, Deputy Mayor Gerald Power, Councillor David Mallard, Councillor Steve Peterson, Councillor Glenn Floyd, Councillor Jack Evans, Councillor Francis Kinghorn, and Councillor Tony Miletto. You're right to go. Thanks.
I'm just wanting to ask the question if there is a an interim solution to the shortage of swimming space in Orange, with a proposal to build a new learn to swim facility, which is fantastic. As a swimming teacher, as a swimmer, as a veteran, I feel like it's a valuable facility to be putting into our town. And I think if there's an opportunity to discuss ex-services pool for an interim solution to actually either make a purpose built for learn to swim or for lap swimming, to attend a pool and to be told, sorry, there's no public swimming between 3:30 and 6:30 because we have such a massive learn to swim program is wonderful. But as a swimmer who works full time, who has 4 children, who is trying to manage their mental health, it's a really hard thing to swallow when you can't actually get a swim in, especially if the lake's got blue-green algae, if it's too cold. There has to be some sort of balance. And, taking away from learn to swim obviously isn't the answer because it makes council money and it's an important, valuable skill children need to have. But there has to be an interim solution to a 10-year program for a new learn to swim pool. So I'm just wondering, can the question be asked, service. I believe it's still being used as a storage facility. Surely there could be some sort of agreement come to utilise that space, which is a fantastic space. I was the head coach there for a number of years when I first moved to Orange. It's a great facility. It could absolutely be used for either lap swimming for adults only or for learn to swim, either way. So thank you.
Alexandra? That concludes the open forum. The council meeting will now resume. There are no mayoral minutes. Confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting, 3.1. Can I have a mover?
Minutes.
Thanks, Councillor Whitten. Seconded by Councillor Power. Any speakers? There being no speakers, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. This council meeting will now adjourn, and the running of the policy committees, I'll now hand over to Councillor Whitten for the Planning and Development Policy Committee. Councillor Whitten, all yours.
Good evening. Good evening. Oh, you're right, right? It's a nice chair, that one, Mr Mayor. Thank Councillor Greenhalgh for that.
I feel like Dickie Neal. You know.
We're going to put that in the budget for new chairs. Yeah. I would like to open the Planning and Development Committee meeting on the 5th of December 2023, with the time being, it's around almost 20 to 7. I understand we have one pecuniary interest, which will be on item 2.3 from Councillor Greenhalgh. And there's another 2.2 from Councillor Mallard, who will be staying in the chamber. No further declarations of interest. Thank you, councillors. Item 2.1, items approved under delegated authority. Recommendation is on page 5.
Move, Mr Chair.
Been moved by Councillor Hamling, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Any discussion on this item? No discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The motion is unanimous. Item 2.2, planning proposal. Just give me a moment. 2.2, Councillor Mallard, okay, staying in the room. Planning proposal, proposed neighbourhood supermarket, additional permitted use, Bloomfield Medical Centre, 1517, 1539 Forest Road, Orange. There is a recommendation on page 7. Mover, Councillor Peterson, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Peterson.
Yeah, I need to say how I support the recommendation. Being an employee of the hospital, it's one of Orange's largest employer, and we should at least investigate what additional facilities can be offered to the nearby workers and the residents in this growing area.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Yeah, just add to that as well. I think with a hotel nearby, as well as the hospitals, I think it is handy, that sort of small-scale supermarket where you can just get a few of the things you need is, like I know there was an earlier proposal, as explained in the report, that was quite a different proposition. I think this looks to make sense, and, yeah, happy to support it.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Councillor Greenhalgh.
Yeah, I'm fully in support of this as well. I think with the facilities that we now have out there with the likes of Ronald McDonald House, Cancer Care West Lodge, for people that sometimes don't have transport in town rather than the bus, it's a great opportunity for them to just duck over and grab the essential items that they require. So I'm in full support as well.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh. Further speakers? I'll speak for the motion. Yeah, in the last council when this came to us, I was fully supportive of particular recommendation at the time, which was then reduced to this. I think with the amount of people who work at the health facility and the hours that they work, especially when they need to buy foods for their home, it's really hard. They've got to get into town after they finish their shifts. If they can do that whilst they're at work during the day when they have a break and a few minutes to pop over the road, I think that goes towards giving them a better, more time to manage their families. Alrighty. All of those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Item 2.3 is Councillor Greenhalgh just going to step out for a moment. We have a mover in Councillor Councillor Miletto. My apologies, Councillor Miletto. Seconded by Councillor
Is that with option
Floyd.
3 for the second part of that? Got it.
Sorry. I thought it was going to be faster. So I'll just go back to the recommendation.
Pick an option for option 2.
No, but I've sub option.
7.
Alrighty, so point 1 is the council consents to the development application, and point 2, the council determine an appropriate parking contribution, which you have the 3 options. So I'm in your hands, councillors.
I think Councillor Miletto wanted to do them in seriatim. Is that correct?
Do what in seriatim? We only have 2 points. Doesn't make sense. So we've got the options there. We can't do one at a time. We have to pick one of the options. Does that make sense, councillors? So, as the mover, Councillor Miletto, if you were to look at those options on, I'll help you out here. There's an option on page 163, which is $201,000. Another one at $60,000. And there's a one at $31,000. If you want to decline your motion, I can ask for another councillor.
The recommendation's option 2 from the staff.
You're going with option 1?
Staff recommendation.
Going to go with the staff recommendation, which is 60,000. Right. Do we have a motion to approve it with a
Hang on.
$60,000? Any speakers for or against, please?
Mr Chair,
Councillor Hamming.
just with the staff approval, it says here it's recommended that the proposal be approved using option 2, parking contributions, and with that, condition 9 with the consent be adjusted to require payment of $31,000.
That's correct.
That's the one you're going with?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. That's right.
Is that what it is?
That's the one it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm happy to.
Been-
Paying $31,000.
Yes, happy with that.
Does everyone understand that? Good. Any further speakers? Councillor Kinghorn?
I just have a question about when there's a DA approved and a building happens. I'm just wondering how it was missed having the required amount of parking in the first place. Did we look at that?
I'll refer that through.
I realise it was a long time
See,
ago and probably you
yeah.
weren't there at the time, but I'm just curious as to how that can happen.
Changes of use, they do parking reallocation charges, and sometimes council does have the power to.
It just says that in the mid to late 1990s, not all of the required car parking for this development was constructed. So,
Mr. Johnson, welcome.
Good evening, councillors, Chairman. Yeah, look, whenever we carry out an assessment, we need to go back through, I guess, council's historic records to determine what was the car parking analysis at that particular time. And back in about the mid-1990s, you may recall that the Metro developed a motel complex out the rear of the complex there. In the report there, it indicates that there's no record of a final occupation certificate being issued in relation to that development. Now, whatever reason, they may have had certain things sorted, but there's no formal record. And through no one's. I can't answer why the final occupation certificate wasn't issued for that development at the time, but there was a requirement for some 42 car parking spaces to be provided, and there was, 34 that have been physically provided on the site. It represents an 8 shortfall. So I guess with that starting point with any new development is that we would sort of need to address that particular issue. So if we go back about the middle of the 1990s through to now, it's some sort of 20, let's say 1995 to now, it's some 28 years whereby the development is operated with a shortfall of those 8 car parking spaces being operated, and we have had limited complaint, I guess. But that's why you've got a number of different options and approaches there. Is that the first one plays a straight bat and carries out an analysis of what should have been provided, and then what should have been provided gets taken away by the extension of this development. It comes up with over $200,000 worth of contributions, and I guess our staff look at this and indicated that the whole capital investment value of the proposed extension is about $440. So it seemed like a big impost on such a small change to the hotel development under this application. So that's why you've got some options there, and there's alternative option 1, which recognises some of that car parking will be re-provided. It's a matter of doing some further line marking and providing that space, and that worked out to being with the provision of those only taking away 2 spaces as opposed to 5. It means clearing the deck with regards to the previous requirement that wasn't provided, but then providing some of those back, doing the analysis of the floor space, and it come out at around 3.42 car parking spaces, which then equated to a contribution of around $60,000. And the third option, or alternative option 2, for which Council's Director of Development Services, when he authorised this report, recommended that option. It recognised that the outdoor gaming area, lounge area associated with the development ought not to be part of the subject calculations in relation to that, determining what that car parking was. That's a similar approach to the calculations that were done out at Wentworth Golf Course going back a couple of years ago. So Mark has acknowledged that. So the long and the short of that indicated that there are about 1.7, I think, from memory in the report short, calculated out by the contribution, equal to around about $30,000 contribution. So there's some alternative approaches for council to consider in determining this development application, and that's the sort of history.
I guess I was just more curious about the process, and would that happen now?
Well, there's a requirement under any development consent that we issue for those developments that they do obtain occupation certificates. With commercial development, I'm not sure that a formal occupation certificate actually is required at the end of the day, but it is a requirement nonetheless to, if there's a consent condition and a plan that required certain things to be done, they ought to be done. So,
well, they should be. The fact that this has been going for so many years, obviously without any dramas, indicates that probably maybe they need quite so much car parking in the first place. But it's just interesting that it was a requirement and it wasn't done. So,
and I guess we've got many properties across the board. I mean, we're just this one hasn't come up on the radar or required an analysis until today, when they choose to do something different to what they've got happening. So, based on the capital investment value of the development, that's the recommendation that's come out of Council's Director of Development Services.
Councillor Miletto, have the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Director. Fair to say, though, current applicant wasn't the same applicant who was back in 1995, so he bears no responsibility for not following up the occupational certificate, which should have been provided back then.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the change in ownerships over time, but I understand that it has changed a couple of times. When someone purchases land, they do their due diligence as to what consents operate off the property. The consents go with the land, not the person. So in theory, they need to be cognizant of the requirements of that particular consent, and they're bound by the requirements of that consent in theory. So,
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Johnson whilst he's at the podium? Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Any further speakers? Okay. Yeah, look, over the years, contributions have been contentious when they come to council for all sorts of different reasons, but I think this one's, we've certainly chosen a common sense approach to this. And so without any further ado, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. CEO, for your...
I'll get it.
I think that brings me now to item 2.4, development applications 72 and 74 Summer Street and 68 Hill Street.
Move it.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
My apologies.
Yep. Recommendation is on
185.
183.
Happy to move, Mr.
Been moved by Councillor Miletto, seconded by Councillor Duffy. Any discussion on this item? No discussion. I'll put the motion. It's good to see that we're not going to have an empty spot there forever. It's like sometimes it happens at petrol stations. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Includes the Planning and Development Committee meeting and the time being it's about, I don't know, 7 minutes to 7. And we've got, I'll call up Councillor Miletto to conduct the Employment Economic Development Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. The meeting opened at 6:55 p.m. and I'd like councillors to have a look at item number 1.1. That's I don't think we had any declarations of interest. So we go to item 2.1. That's the minutes of the Economic Development Community Committee held on the 15th of November 2023. There's a recommendation on page 5, councillors. Do I have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Greenhalgh. A seconder, Councillor Peterson. Is there any discussion, councillors? There being none, I'll put the motion. All for? Any against? Carried. Sweet. Thanks, councillors. That concludes the Employment Economic Development Community meeting. The time now being 7:56 p.m. and I now call on Councillor Evans to conduct the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Miletto. I'll open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting for the 5th of December, the time being 5 to 7. We have a recommendation, item 2.1 on page 5.
Happy to move it.
Too quick for me. Who moves, sorry? Councillor McDonald, thank you. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Floyd. Any discussion on the Traffic Committee minutes? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern is, and it has been for a long time, that this Traffic Committee is restricted. I'd like to see us add to that, we write to our local member to encourage other organisations such as service vehicles, taxis, buses, trucks, to be involved in traffic matters instead of the 4 people that are there. And I say that because up at Lexington School last week, there was a young child run over. I'm pretty to see it there. I arrived about 10 seconds after it happened, and it's not pretty to look at. And you see the young child just laying there, and that is a very busy intersection. I think if you had spoke to the people in trucks and taxis and buses, they would say that something needs to be done. I know the police was there, but I don't think it was reported in the media. I don't know what the question is, but I'd like, I think if they could, write to the local member, and it's his committee, that we ask him to extend the to advise other users.
Will that be a matter arising after this?
Yep.
Beautiful. Thank you. Any other comments on the Traffic Committee? Councillor McDonald?
I would just like to say that it's great to see that the parking lines on Frost Street hopefully makes a big difference, because a lot of people can't seem to sort of much better parking situation.
Thank you. Further comment on the Traffic Committee? There being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Matter arising, Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the fact that we write to the local member to see if we can address the issue of increasing the Traffic Committee membership involved service organisations that are involved in traffic, such as traffic buses and truck companies and all that. And as I said, I've always been an advocate of making it bigger, simply because I think the area is a bit limited that are talking, and we're talking about areas around schools, and to see that young child laying on the ground in a really bad way is not good. And that intersection up there, I know council's done a lot of work up there. It's extremely busy because you've got vehicles coming both ways. You've got a stop-go person on the right-hand side. And there's a lot of issues there. And not only do you see the young students with glaring eyes about when do they go, you see the drivers coming across that want to cross the intersection into Matthews Avenue. They hit the button as well, and that's what causes the problem. So I just like to think that we can address that issue, and I'd like us to write to the local member.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Whitten. Sorry, question, probably to the Director. Would that not be a matter for the charter of the Traffic Committee, or is this Councillor Duffy correct in that we can write to the Minister and have it altered that way?
The local member.
I think we can invite attendees to the Traffic Committee, but the voting members are set by regulation. So the voting members of the Traffic Committee are set down by regulation. However, we also have a Road Safety Committee, and that's got an open membership.
Thank you. Councillor Miletto, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for Councillor Duffy for raising this issue. And I can indicate that at the last Traffic Committee, it was discussed at some length with the police and Transport for New South Wales delegates who were there. So it certainly hasn't gone under the radar, being addressed by those people that I've referred to.
Thank you.
Could I just ask a question? So what you're saying that they're not voting members, but they can come and give a submission, a verbal submission to the committee?
I'll just have to check that. I think it'd be similar to a council meeting, in that the item would have to be up on the agenda for them to give a comment on that agenda item.
I understand sort of where maybe Councillor Duffy's coming from, because, you know, having people who use those roads a lot of the time, being able to have input into decisions being made from that committee, I don't think it'd be a bad thing, personally.
No problem with hearing from different people. It's just that they may get a little frustrated if they're invited into a meeting and they're not allowed to vote on a matter. So
well, that'd have to be stipulated. Well, I don't know. But anyway.
I imagine Councillor Duffy's request would be to invite voting members. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the letter to the member will then probably, and I can't speak on behalf of the member, but I would probably guess that the member would write to the Minister to have the terms of references for the Traffic Committee looked at. This has been, as Councillor Duffy said, it's often been raised, and under the terms of reference they are invited representatives from police, traffic, council, but there is a member who is invited as a industry member. I don't know who that may be at the moment. Councillor Miletto may help me, but certainly the letter goes to the local member. He'll raise it with the Minister and see. And I suppose at least we're asking the question of what is the process to allow industry members like taxi drivers, bus drivers, truck drivers, whoever else.
Could I have a point of clarification?
Yep.
Are all committees the same everywhere, or is that just for our committee?
Director Greenham.
I can answer that question.
Councillor Duffy.
Yep, thank you. I know that Tamworth have a group, a large number of members on that committee where they get the business papers and they all meet at a certain period of time. And I know there's a couple of other councillors there. I've always been told that it's covered by regulation, yes, but it's also in by the local member, because that's how it was first set up. I mean, something, as Councillor Whitten said, we've discussed in here plenty of times. But, when you talk about Transport New South Wales, we saw them come to town the other week, didn't really discuss things that people wanted to be able to discuss. They just said, hey, this is what it is, and away they walked and didn't really talk to local people. So, that's my concern. I know the taxi drivers, I know the bus drivers and truck drivers that use that, and school teachers up at Bletchington are extremely worried that. And you see the parents congregate at that intersection up there, and the kids are going anywhere and everywhere, and you just don't know what's going on. The same problem happened down at the roundabout, or you see kids get halfway and they had their eyes gleaming, so therefore they drop the traffic coming out of the back entrance of Bletchington. This one here is a real problem. Tried to address it with the uprising of the intersection, but it hasn't worked.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I suppose just a question through you, just to try and clarify this. We have two traffic committees. One is the road safety one, and one is the Orange Traffic Committee. I thought that the Orange Traffic Committee was the one that we sort of council controls the charter of, and the road safety one was no, it's not. Okay, so they're both totally out of our hands for that.
That's the Cabon one.
No, so there's two road committees.
Yeah, it's a Cabon Orange Road Safety Committee.
Yes, yeah. So I'm trying to just it's
That's councils.
It's council's committee.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I just needed to clarify that in my head because I had it the other way around.
Further comment? Everyone's clear on what we're voting on? You want to close the debate, Councillor Duffy, or are you good? Very good. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Yep.
Against? 1, 2. Out. Councillor Powell, did you vote?
I guess so.
Against? Okay, right, that's. Thank you. Motion's carried. Thank you. I'll move on to item 3.1 on page 23, which is the current works report.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten, a seconder. Councillor Kinghorn, thank you. Discussions on current works.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask
Councillor Hemming.
questions? The recent storm events that we've been having, have we been, has the stormwater harvesting been operating? Has the pipeline been activated to fill our reservoirs while these storm events are going through? Because there's been a hell of a lot of water. And my question number 2 is, where's stormwater harvesting Blackmans 2 up to?
Okay, thank you. Very good questions. We've got some. I'll deal with the operation of the Macquarie to Orange pipeline and the stormwater harvesting itself, the operation of those two facilities, in that we generally don't operate those until we get down around about the 90% mark is our requirement for the Macquarie to Orange pipeline. We're currently sitting at a combined storage of just under 97%, and we've now got with the recent storms, we've got a high flow event happening at the moment, which is just above our trigger for a summer release. So we release up to 7 megalitres per day to match the incoming flows until they drop below 7 megalitres a day, or 14 days, whichever comes first. So we get that summer flush running through. So that's operating at the moment because we went over that 7 meg trigger. On the stormwater harvesting stage 2, we've sent all our information through to DBI Water for the assessment team. They've acknowledged they've received all that information and they'll go through the process now. So I hope to hear something in the first quarter of next year on a positive response on that project.
Thank you. Happy with those responses. I'm not happy with the, once we start going down, we're going to start going down. And I just think that trigger point of 90%. I know it's part of the rules and regulations of the Macquarie pipeline. If we get to 95% and there's a big storm event, I'd like to see us being able to pump some water up to keep our dam at 100%. It just worries me what's coming, and these storm events mightn't be as frequent, or they mightn't be as much. So if there's any way that we can try and keep our reservoirs full, I don't know. That's just my opinion. And I know I've spoken to Rose Jackson many a time about Orange's water supply and Orange's, she's identified, the government have identified Orange, Bathurst and Tamworth. They're worried about major regional centres that can get into a lot of trouble. Now, if we're identified in that, why can't some of those triggers be moved so while we've got this water flushing around that we can capture it for our residents of Orange? Just an opinion.
Councillor McDonald.
Just to follow up a bit on that, where are we at with the investigations into purified wastewater? Obviously, those triggers are there for a reason, and there's strict environmental flows and laws regarding that. So, changing that's not going to be a quick fix. Neither is anything really. But where are we at with investigating that, or options and things like that?
Yeah, so it's identified in our integrated water cycle management plan as a long-term option. There's been changes to the national water grid applications now, where water utilities can apply directly for funds to progress an item. We've hit the send today on a preliminary business case application funding. So it has to go through anything that gets approved through the national water grid. It has to go through a preliminary business case, final business case, and then construction. But we've started it. We've got, in principle, state government support, at least verbally, to progress it, because our application is made through the state through to the federal government. So we've gone through that step. We've got them on board. Not necessarily committing any funds at this stage from the state, but we'll at least progress it through, and hopefully we are successful in getting that up.
And so is that an opportunity? So when Councillor Hamling was saying that he's speaking with Rose Jackson a lot, is that something that we can bring up them?
Rose has recommended that we actually apply through the national water grid. Yes. Yeah. We've been speaking to her before.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Question is to, and follow up on Councillor Hamling's comment there, as regards to, I can't see why we can't write to the Minister to get something in black and white from the Minister to say, look, where are we going? So concerned about Bathurst, Orange, something in black and white. She's been there long enough now to have a bit of an understanding of what's actually happening. I do believe there are other things in the pipeline as well, but I think we just be about the trigger figures that we're talking at the moment. Be able to out of those triggers to keep our percentage up. And I'm quite happy to move that way. We write to the Minister that way.
We're coming back to a matter arising. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. I had 3 questions, but I'm down to 2 because one of them was the same as one of Councillor Hamling's. The first one, I've just noticed walking along the relatively new footpath up Forbes Road, been there for that long, they're now putting in, I assume it's NBN, so they've got the top of those in the actual footpath, and then they've put some cold mix bitumen around the outside of it. Is that normal for them not to make good what was actually there? They've just put, it just worries me, that cold mix stuff, because it doesn't work that well on the roads and when it rains, and I just wonder whether A, it's going to sink, or B, whether it's going to just fall apart. And I don't know, there's about 4 of them that I just noticed on the weekend.
I have to take that on notice. I know when we do put power poles in a footpath area, new power poles, they won't concrete up to the power pole. They will. They need a flexible joint around it, so they will fill that with asphalt.
So it might just be because it's easy to get that lid out if they need to. So.
They're pits, yeah. They're supposed to make good. They're pits. They're 6 pits, 9 pits, yeah.
What quite often they do is if they're coming through and doing a series of work, they'll put the asphalt in as a temporary replacement, and then come through as a series of work and do all the concrete works
Oh,
at
okay,
once.
all right,
as a-
that's fine.
as a
I just
stage.
noticed it and thought, oh, that's odd. My second question relates to water. And when we had all that rain last week, the amount of rain in the official rain gauge, which is at the airport, was not very much. And in town, it was like 10 times as much. That's our official rain gauge. We've got no say in it being out there. Is that right? And I think there's one, DPI have one at Forest Road as well. Do we have a council one somewhere so we actually know how much?
Absolutely, yeah.
And
There's a number of gauges through the city.
Okay.
I think there's one in South Orange somewhere. I just can't recall where, but there's certainly one at the DPI, and we have one out of the sewage treatment plant as well.
Okay.
And I think we also have one at the depot that we monitor.
Okay. That's good. They were just so different, the amounts of rain. So I was just wondering. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, is there also one at that croquet courts, the EPA
Yes.
station?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, most
Always has been.
most official readings are done at the airport because they are generally on the air access side, so there's limited access, so there's limited opportunity for them to be tampered with.
Councillor Greenhouse.
Just a question to the Director, through you if I may, while we're on water. Just in relation to the cemetery, the new non-denominational section is using bore water. Is there any, can we treat bore water?
We can treat bore water. but
Reason,
we've
and
got
it's a
no plans at the
personal
moment to.
reason. It's a personal reason for me. Also, it's destroying headstones, like really destroying headstones. For someone like me that goes just about every day, it's hard to maintain. But I feel for those people who don't actually have loved ones in town to care for it when it's all white, water stained, and it's over time. I'm just worried about what it's going to actually do to that natural stone.
Noted. ELT had a visit out at the cemetery only about a month ago, wasn't it, David? And at that time we had a chat to the operators. Then they identified the bore water as a bit of an issue.
Yep.
We thought it probably best to look at extending the existing water main service so they get the town water rather than treating the existing bore water as such. So we're looking into that.
Perfect. And I know water's a precious commodity, like I do understand that, but I just feel over time that, thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Two questions of the Director. Going through current works and I can't see Lord's Place. Second one is a lady called Margaret from Sunny South Crescent did another stumble on Anson Street. It's on Anson Street. Footpath.
I'll take the Anson Street footpath on notice. I know Council's had a briefing about properties on Anson Street with trips and what have you, or with routes and what have you. Happy to provide an updated briefing on footpaths in that area as well. I think we were gathering some information for councillors, so that was in train, I believe. The Lord's Place one isn't in the current works report, but we have successfully removed all of the, I suppose, the hard landscaping. There was, with the wet weather, we haven't got the asphalt works done as yet. There's a planned, it was penciled in for Thursday night. We've just got to reconfirm that with the contractor. But if not Thursday night, they've got Sunday night scheduled in for coming through and patching out where each of those dining decks were. I can give you an updated.
Into your
I can give
microphone,
you an
Councillor
updated
Duffy.
email. Yeah.
And one on Anson Street as well.
Anson
On the
Street as well.
footpath,
Yeah, an updated email is fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Further comments on current works? Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question to the Director and Summer Street East. Someone called me and mentioned that between Spring and Park Street, there's a section of the new footpath that we left in front of an entire frontage of a residence. Now, I haven't been there to see this myself, Director, so I'll stand
so
corrected.
I'll take it on notice.
Yeah. So you and I might visit it together to see it for ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Further comments on current works?
Yeah, could I just ask a
Councillor
question?
Hamlin.
There seems to be a lot of short patching of roads going on around the place. Are there any more new funding that's become available for more funding for roadworks or anything like that from the federal government or any governments?
So, yeah, good question. The patching works are in that road rehabilitation section of the report on page 24 of your report. We've got a list of about a dozen or more items there of patch sections. We're doing a little bit of rework there after those storms last week, and we're planning to seal those on Thursday of this week. That's all part of the state government's pothole patching money. So we're getting that work through. There has been an announcement from the federal government to double the commitment to the repair program. So under the repair program, there were some changes earlier in the year. I think with that, we lost around about, we were expecting 1.4 million over the next 4 years. That's been brought back to about $1 million. And now they've doubled it. So it goes from 1 million up to about 2 million. That was, the pullback was on a new split of the funding model based on how many kilometres of roads that we actually maintain. That was a change to the split up and the dividing of the cake, so to speak. But certainly with the, so Orange was a net loser out of that. I think Cabon, our neighbour, was a net winner out of that arrangement. Certainly the commitment to double it over the in the forward estimates, so none of that will come through in this financial year, but certainly next financial year we're expecting a doubling of the regional road repair program.
Thank you, Director.
That's been a good change. Thank you.
I'll close the debate, Mr. Chairman, if there's no further.
Certainly.
Thank you. Great reports. And I just want to highlight the questions that Councillor Hamling raised. For those of us who were here during the last two droughts, the last drought we almost made the decision to take the city to level 6 water restrictions. And Orange is probably one of the only, and I'll stand corrected, one of the only major regional cities that is continuously on restriction level 2, always, because we are a catchment that feeds everybody else. So we have no means of water other than what we catch. And when we did the stormwater water harvesting, we were the first in the world to do that. And there was talk last time, and I'm sure it's about us now getting on the front foot, whilst we are still reasonably in good times, to have these discussions about these triggers, because last time there was discussion about changing those triggers because of the fact that and there was all these other strategies as well, and I'm sure the director would be on our side by saying we need to start. We need to talk about this now, not wait until we start getting to level 4, level 5, level 6, and go, well, what do? We need to come up with a plan, because as soon as it starts raining, we all forget about it. We all forget about the plan of how we're going to secure Orange's water supply. I think it's a good opportunity for us to visit the relevant ministers and just have a chat. Now, I am conscious of the fact that there's all of these downstream, we do affect downstream, but we need to come up with a strategy and a plan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Comment on that.
Yep, Councillor Hamling.
I've had many meetings of with Minister Jackson. She knows what's going on out here, believe me.
Yeah, I'm sure they do, yeah. So it's a matter of just let's get a plan, yeah.
Very good. There's no further comment. I'll move the current works report. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Councillor Duffy had a matter arising. Very good, thank you. There are no other items in the Infrastructure Policy Committee. I'll close the meeting at 7:20. I'll hand over to Councillor Greenhouse for Sport and Rec. Thank you.
I'd now like to open the Sport and Recreation Policy Committee meeting for 5th of December 2023, the time being 7:20. Does any councillor have any pecuniary interests? Okay. So we'll move on to item 2.1, recognition of Mr. Robert Bob Russell.
Move it.
I'll second that.
Perfect. Any discussion on this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to thank the council staff, in particular Director Maunder, who issued this matter as a resolution of council that this be done. I think what it does demonstrate is that we do recognise people in our community who have a major contribution, and sport is a big part of the Orange community fabric, and know that Mr. Russell conducted his business, his sports store in Orange for 3 decades, maybe 4. He's had an influence on a lot of people's lives, but not only Mr. Russell, but also it's nice to acknowledge other people who've contributed to the town, and this is just another way of council being in a position to recognise the they've made, and I think it's a fitting reward for not only for the late Mr. Bob Russell, but also his family, and we do appreciate the contribution that has made to Orange and the surrounding area. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Yeah, I totally concur with Councillor Miletto. As a young boy growing up, I think Bob Russell Sports Shop was where you went and got all your gear, and he was also very generous with sponsoring numerous junior teams and all that sort of thing. So he's what he's done for our community. I think it's great it's being recognised.
No other speakers? Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't disagree with the resolution whatsoever, but I just wonder whether we should advertise it just to see if there's any complaints or anything comes up better. Because when you're talking about the netball courts down there, I was under the impression that the water park was going to go there. You know, I don't know.
For some time.
No other speakers? I would just like to make comment as well. I think it's a fantastic idea, and I totally agree supporting and recognising people that have contributed to our community. As Secretary of Bloomfield Junior Rugby League, going back to the history of our club, I believe we were named Bloomfield Tigers because when we went in to get some jerseys at Bob Russell Sportswear, they only had orange ones. So that's how we became Bloomfield Tigers. But yeah, I'm in full support of this motion. So if there's no other comments, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. So we'll now move on to item 2.2, the design for Learn to Swim facility at Orange Aquatic Centre. There's a recommendation on page 7.
There's a recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten and Councillor Floyd. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Duffy?
Yes, I'm going to support this 100%, but I do have a concern of putting it in the current site with the current swimming pool. I say that simply because it's of the other parking arrangements that are down there. When you have a specialist centre for sport, whatever it is, it'll drag more people in, and the numbers will get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think we probably should not restrict it to just the current site, but look for other sites as well.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just support this 100%. I think we've been crying out for something like this. The indoor swimming pool that we did put down there, it is too successful, so that's why we're looking at other facilities. I think, you know, with parking, there'd have to be some. You have to look into parking. Definitely have to look into parking because when it's a busy day down there, it's busy down there with cars everywhere. So that'd be one thing. The other thing I would like to see as part of this, if it was going to go down there and it was going to be a dedicated Learn to Swim, I'd like to see it indoor. I've always said I'd like to see it indoor play area for children. The bucket thingamajiggaby and, you know, one of those splash park things, because I think during winter it'll just give another option for families to go down and have something else to do. And in our cool climate and our population of, 42,500, we should have more indoor facilities. So if we can get another indoor pool dedicated. Yep, that takes people out of whatever. But we do know that what happens in summer, it's okay because we've got the 50-metre pool and the 25-metre pool. Come winter, when we're trying to squeeze, everyone's had emails, when we're trying to squeeze everyone into that 25-metre pool, comes a logistical nightmare. So, you know, how good is it that we do have 2,500 adults and children learning, learn to swim? So, yeah, there's a couple of things that I'd like to see. You know, I agree. Parking is an issue, and maybe a kid's wet area with a bucket. And you know, there was things thrown up like a gym and all that sort of thing. So you know, it depends how big you want to go with this. Now, this is about having a conversation. You know, putting it out on exhibition, getting these shovel-ready projects ready. If we can get this ready to go, a grant comes up from the federal government where they're looking at community infrastructure. Bang, we throw it in. So I think this is great, and we want to hear back from the community.
Any other speakers? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, through you, a couple of questions, perhaps for the director. One, given the ideas that were raised in the open forum, just wanted to ask: has there at any point been any exploration of a temporary option of making use of the ex-services club pool, whether through a lease arrangement or anything else?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, we haven't.
Okay, do you have any initial reactions to the thought, or?
I know it'd be expensive, and I'm not even sure that the facility, it was closed for good reasons and so it would no doubt have to be brought up to speed and the changes made to that building. So it may be possible. I wouldn't just dismiss it out of hand by any means, but it will be expensive. I know that.
No worries. Thanks for that. And then my other question was on the resolution here. We're recommending putting it on exhibition for 21 days, but we're at the 5th of December, so we're going into the Christmas New Year period. I was wondering about your thoughts of whether we could extend it and the time frame that you're looking at. Steps after the public comment, would it be problematic if we extend it for 2 or 3 extra weeks?
Oh, not at all. Typically we do that where this happens. So we'd close mid-January, so to speak. So we do leave them open for longer over that period. We've done it with DAs, and that whilst the 21's is the statutory days, we can extend.
Okay, so do we need to amend the resolution, or will that be dealt with? Matter of course, like I'm happy to move an amendment to increase it to 35 or something to give it a couple of extra weeks. So you need that. Yeah, if they're happy to.
So yeah,
Jeff, Councillor Whitten, were you the
sorry, I'm just thinking about ex-services pool. Sorry, Councillor Mallard. Could I hear your reasons again? I'm just wondering why.
We're going into Christmas and New Year. We're talking about if it goes out on exhibition tomorrow, it's closing on like the 27th of December.
Yep.
Public comments are just proposing we extend it 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, fine. What would be your concerns? Is that council won't deal with it until we come back? Is that what your concerns are? Or?
Well, they're not going to, but also people are away during that time. It's harder to get. They might be off social media for a while, those sorts of things. So in terms of engaging people for public comment.
I have no problem, Madam Chair, yeah. I think that's sensible. Yep.
Okay, so we can make note of that.
Ask a question, please.
Certainly.
Obviously, we have Kinross have a facility up there. Has there been any negotiations with them about maybe helping us out somewhere along the line?
Kinross run a Learn to Swim program up there and a squad program already. I haven't had a direct conversation with Kinross now about accessing their pool. So they typically use it at the same periods of time that ours is in demand, straight after school.
Because the other thing that the speaker spoke about was, you know, there might be, I know we're finding it hard to get staff and everyone is, I know all that, but, you know, extending the pool operating hours till 8 o'clock on a Sunday, not so people can swim, or I don't know, just looking at all different options.
It is difficult time. The timing's difficult. So in winter, I'd love to go for a swim before a council meeting, for example, but I can't because it's being used for learn to swim. And I think that's the challenge. You know, people have got families and kids and dinners and those sorts of things. So 8 o'clock, typically we don't have much demand. We have through this year, we did keep a lane open. That came at the expense of about 30 kids doing learn to swim. So, and then what happens is that no one uses that lane, and then the parents say, well, no one's using the lane, so why can't we offer learn to swim? So it's a difficult, it's a difficult juggling act. So that's part of our challenge.
I'll speak.
Which I don't have a solution.
Councillor Whitten.
I'll close the debate if no one's going to talk.
Can I talk? Because I haven't made a comment yet. Is that all right?
This is your meeting.
So, yeah, I'm in full support of this. I think it's clear that we have a need for this in our community. I understand the parking concerns. In the perfect world, we'd just pick it all up and move it to a much bigger site. But in the real world, that's not going to happen. And I think COVID's contributed to this as well, because I think we've got a bit of a backlog of children who haven't done Learn to Swim. So we do have to be mindful too, but I think it's going to be more hydrotherapy, isn't it? The one that the Aboriginal Centre's building.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, in the interim, like, I would like to see us, you know, I don't know how we solve the problem, but yeah, if we could possibly at least broach the ex-services club. But I'm with Mayor Hamling in saying, you know, that the more we can do down there, and I like the idea of the indoor play thing for winter as well. If we can encourage kids to swim all year round, it might take that burden off on those peak periods as well. So in full support, look forward to what the community thinks about this as well. So, Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's all been said. It's a good problem because for many years when we did build the aquatic centre or talked about building the aquatic centre, the fear was that it would never be used. And now we're seeing that it's overutilised and there's demand for more. So it gives us as a council some direction and a goal to aim for. Here we have a project that the community would get behind 100%. We just need to come up with a plan, which the staff have done, and it's going to go out on exhibition. But in the meantime, our role as councillors would be to speak to our local members and lobby to find out and keep our ear to the ground, which staff will do, about grant funding. And we know what we're targeting. We're targeting something, a facility, a public facility that's going to give a great deal back to the community. And what it looks like and what shape it takes, we'll come up with. But let's go after the money. We have a goal, I think. I think we're all in agreement. I hope we're all in agreement. To go after a great facility like this is going to support the community. And, you know, if I had my way, and I might raise this at another day, I'd like to see us having free access to the open swimming pool the way we had many years ago. As a young person in Orange, the pool was free. And there are a number of children in our community and families in our community. There's lots, there's tons, there's probably every family that are doing it quite financially tough at the moment. So if we can do little things like that to help them out, especially give them access to the outdoor pool, I'm not saying so much the aquatic centre, but for free, because that's the way we used to do it. And I know our financial controller has just fallen on the floor, so has the CEO, but I'll raise this another day. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I couldn't agree more, and that comes back to lobbying the government to reinstate the Active Kids vouchers so parents can actually afford swimming lessons for their children as well. So with no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Sport and Rec Policy Committee meeting, with the time being 7:35, and I'll call on Councillor Mallard to conduct the Environmental Sustainability Committee meeting.
Whose glasses are they?
Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh. I'd like to open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting with the time being 7:34 p.m. I don't believe we had any conflicts of interest unless anyone wants to declare one now. There being none, I'll move on to item 2.1, minutes of the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee, 2nd of November 2023. There's a recommendation on page 5. Can I have a mover and a
Happy to move
seconder?
that.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald and Councillor Peterson. Is there any discussion on this item? Being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried. To item 2.2, minutes of the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee. Have a recommendation. Page number here.
63.
63.
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Power. Any discussion on this item? Being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee with the time being 7:36. I'll call on Councillor Duffy to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Thank you, councillors. I declare the Finance Policy Committee open at 7:36 and call for any notices of conflicts of interest. And we'll move on to item 2.1, where's a event spot ship on page 5. There's a recommendation there that council sponsor the Central West Vets Golf Week for an amount of $1,500 for the Central West Vets Golf Week from the 4th to the 8th of March 2024.
Happy to move that.
I'll second that, Mr Chair.
Second moved by Councillor Greenhalgh, seconded by Councillor Hamling. Any discussion? Councillor.
Fabulous event. Brings a lot of people to town and they follow this around the circuit. Was really good mixing with a lot of them last year. And as the question was asked last year, were Bathurst chipping in? It's only the one day that's going to Bathurst and all of them stay here. So I think it's a great event and we definitely should continue to support it.
Any further discussion? I can make the comment it's something we've sponsored every year and because of the economic benefit to our city as regards to those people that do travel here and share our facilities and spend their money here. I'm going to put that recommendation. All those in favour, raise your hand. The matter is unanimous. And that will close the Finance Policy Committee at 7:38. Call on Councillor McDonald to do the Service Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Open up the Services Policy Committee meeting with the time being 7:38. Any declarations of interest? Cool. In that case, item 2.1, recommendations on page 5. Have a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh and Councillor Floyd. Any discussion on this item? Nope. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Exactly, thank you. Unanimous. Item 2.2, minutes of the Ageing and Access Community Committee meeting. Councillor Peterson, happy to move?
Yep.
Seconder, Councillor Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo Kinghorn. Any discussion? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you. I'd just like to highlight a matter arising from 4.1 within item 2.2. Was flagging that council allocate funds of a few $1,000s in the next budget to subsidise purchase of access ramps for interested businesses who would contribute themselves. It's a recommendation from the committee and I would like staff to prepare a budget submission to include in next year's budget, please.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor. Any other discussion? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Excellent. Councillor Whitten, that's a yes. Excellent, thank you. That's unanimous. Item 2.3.
Excuse me.
Matter arising?
Matter arising, if I could. Just the issue with the escalator in the Big W Centre. I know they're planning to fix it next year, but they've now installed bollards at the top and the bottom. You cannot get in with a wheelchair, with a pram. The rumour being maybe they put the bollards there to stop the mat slipping but I just think it's really unacceptable at this time of year when there's no parking with prams at the other entrance down there. And yeah, we really need to get on top of this. It's just not acceptable. I don't know what we can do about it, but we need to do something.
Sorry, I think I'm chairing this meeting. Acting Director.
Yes, Chair. I spoke with Nicole Chapman from the City Centre yesterday in relation to this matter. Yes, the escalators have had a malfunction. They're I guess under repair. It's going to take a little bit of time, I understand, from those discussions as to when they're going to be replaced, repaired. But what they've done is they've actually put down temporary carpet on the escalator, and they put that bollard at the bottom of the escalator there. They've indicated when people were going up there with trolleys and what have you, is that the trolleys locked onto the surface before, and now they can't. So they're worried about errant trolleys, not being held properly and then knocking someone over as such. And that goes the same with, I guess, even a wheelchair can't. Well, I don't know if it's better wheelchair, but that was the indication that they've done there. I guess there are lifts available to get people who need a. I guess I understand there was a lift there, but
there's no lifts in that setup.
Yeah.
There was, but anyway, and I guess the issue there is that when people have full trolleys, they can go to their cars. But I guess it is the question of young mums with strollers and the like trying to navigate through that bollard system. But what they were trying to do is to try and prevent, I guess, those trolleys in that regard. So I guess it's a private issue, and it's a private person's it's a private organisation's building. But that was the explanation I got from the centre manager yesterday.
Have they indicated to you whether, is it a matter of parts? Is it a matter of technicians? We sent a letter through you, Mr. CEO. When did we send the letter? This has been going on for months, months and months and months.
This is absurd.
3 months.
Yeah, at least.
I mean, as Mr. Johnson says, we have no jurisdiction over this matter. Oh, yeah, I've got 1,000 questions. Did you get an indication? Sorry, Chair.
No,
I was just wondering if there was an indication of an exact week or a day.
Talking to Cole, it's next year, and it just comes at a very unfortunate time at the moment. So
nowhere near Christmas.
I don't think there's no end in sight between now and Christmas, which is the difficult period. I can ask some further questions of Nicole and the likes about it. But,
I think the community wants more answers.
Yeah. Agree.
There's a lot of anger out there, not just with that, but with the parking situation underneath and security guards abusing people, supposedly. There's a lot of anger out there. Yeah, I think the community wants the answers. I get that it's not a council jurisdiction, but
we have been approached by the City Centre to enter into a new lease to monitor the car park again for a 12-month period, and we need to prepare a report. It's not based on the same sort of arrangements that we had once in place here going back 12 months ago, but that'll be a separate report to council for their consideration, and that'll be coming up shortly.
I understand, there's community angst and all that, but I suppose if they can't get parts or they can't, gee.
I suppose that's the main question. Why is it taking so long? Because this is just absurd. The fact that it's been 3 months at least, and now we're looking early 2024, so nothing's going to happen in January. No one's going to do anything.
It's out of their control of trying
to I know,
fix
but that's
it.
why we need to be able to have that information so that we can go to the community and go, look.
I don't think it's up to us to go to. It's up to them to go to.
No, but we are the leaders of the community, and they keep coming to us wanting to know what's happening. And even though, yes, we're limited, but we can at least agitate and say the community's not happy. Mileto.
Thank you. And agree with you. So I guess the other issue here is that a lot of those tenants, businesses wouldn't be happy with the current situation, assuming that those tenants coming into the festive season maximise their opportunity for customers visiting their shops, and they're going to lose out as well. So I'm assuming that those tenants pressure on management to do something rather quickly, affecting their businesses as well. So a reason why they can't get the parts, whether they're overseas or whatever, but I couldn't imagine that the sitting because they're getting pressure not only from the local residents and the shoppers and everybody else, and to paying rent. So,
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Just another question through you, Madam Chair. Is there a potential for us as council down near the other entrance where you walk up the ramp? Could we put some temporary parking with pram parks there so we can assist these mothers with young children into the centre at this busy time?
Look, I guess the issue could be raised with the city centre managers, but at the end of the day, it's a private development. They have a compliant number of car parking spaces. There's no requirement to provide those types of spaces, requirements for disabled car parking and the like. That's a management strategy that we could perhaps suggest to them. That's no problems. But I guess if we enter into a separate planning, I guess a separate lease arrangement to monitor the car park, we've got to write up that lease and write up that agreement, and perhaps we could look to incorporate some controls in that to that degree. But that's where we get some say over it, I guess. But other than that, there's nothing much that we can really do.
Thank you. I know our hands are tied, but it's just, I think all the community want is like a bit of information, like trying to seek to understand. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is it on the same issue, Councillor Floyd? Sorry, Acting Director.
I guess, I don't know, Dave, do you want to comment on that? I mean, comms could probably maybe contact them and indicate that, I mean, again, it's a private business and we don't have too much jurisdiction over it. We can certainly make these suggestions known to Nicole Chapman as the centre manager over there.
We've got a very good relationship with Nicole. Can you please express all of these concerns to Nicole tomorrow and offer any help we can that we can offer? But as you say, they're losing business. People will go to the other centre. It's an own goal in many ways. But we will do what we can to offer help and assistance.
To Nicole.
Excellent.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Acting Director. Alrighty, item 2.3, recommendations on page 61. Heritage Community Committee meeting of the 20th of November. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Power. Seconder, Councillor Duffy. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? Councillor Duffy?
Yeah, I've got some discussion. I think it's a great resolution. I do want to go to item 1.3, where a letter of thank you, Alex Resco, for his support of the Cultural Heritage Committee over a number of decades, and I think I know some days she's been a bit feisty. She's in here during the week at the solid negotiations with the staff there about having one of the pot plants that were in Lord's Place put in a olive tree in it. Move to. Meaning of it is, he did explain it to me, but I said, look, that's something the director can take that on board. We'll look at it as well. Leave a letter with us, did she? A letter on the spot, actually.
View, Chair, I don't know, but I would agree with your summation of the word solid.
We
We've had a lot of interaction with Mrs. Resco. She's a very interested ratepayer. Very respected.
The next meeting.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Unanimous, thank you. Item 3.1. Page 101, recommendation is there. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Floyd, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Peterson. Any discussion on this item? Councillor Peterson.
I was wondering if there was a local RSL or other veterans group who could be offered the project, including providing to community engagement and fundraising with the proviso that council would make a substantial contribution if they could demonstrate there was community desire for this statue.
Through you to the CEO.
We can take that idea on board. We've got people we can certainly talk to and suggest that. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I was the seconder of this motion a long time ago, along with Councillor Taylor. That's how long ago this motion came up. And I don't recall who the parties were that approached us to pursue this, but I knew that they were very passionate at the time, more so with Councillor Taylor. So it's pretty much been on the books for 4 years, probably.
3, 4.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm concerned that the only way we do research is to put things on the website for your say to get input from community about things, but it is what it is. You know, as it says in the report, we do have a lot of memorials in town, but this was specifically about families, you know, because when Australians go to conflict on our behalf to keep us safe, it's the mothers who are the ones who suffer most. And it was specifically designed or recommended around that point of view that we put something to in orange that reflects the pain and suffering that the mothers went through during what are we up to? 4, 5 conflicts: the Boer War, the First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and now the wars in the Middle East. So I think it needs to be pursued, and I thank the staff for the work that they have put in, and I think it deserves more. It does deserve recognition. The mothers of those fallen and served do recognition. And I was reminded of the fact that in East Orange, as it says in the reports, but those rows of trees are of individual students who went to East Orange in World War I and died. And where we're about to put a subdivision along the gateway, all of those popular trees is a memorial. All of those trees were planted in remembrance of soldiers. So that'll probably be the next debate. They shouldn't be removed for this subdivision because they are memorials to fallen soldiers. So, yeah, or those that served as well. So thank you, Madam Chair. I think it should be more. There should be more about this, right? Who it's done through the RSLs and through council. Yeah. But anyway, thank you, Councillor.
Any other discussion, Councillor Kinghorn?
Thank you. I tend to agree with Councillor Whitten on this. I think that part of the reason there may be a low response rate is that there's certainly a demographic here that probably doesn't engage with a website or with social media. And it's painful for people to talk about these things as well. So the fact that there's a low response rate just means that we're probably not trying to get the information the right way. So I don't think there should be no further action undertaken. I also think it was Ataturk from talking about the people that we all lost at Gallipoli. There's a thing where he says about how they've become our sons as well, and it's actually really lovely. Something comes out every Anzac Day. I think it's really nice. So there's sort of a historical precedent as well to acknowledge that it is difficult for families, and I think we should do it without people specifically having to request it. It's just obvious to me. Thank you.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. I think it's difficult for people to talk about losing their children. And I think anything we can do as a community in recognition for those mothers particularly, I think would be great if it gives them any sort of comfort whatsoever, where they can go and take a quiet moment to reflect on their child and what their child did for our country. It should definitely be pursued.
So what I was just wondering then, given that there seems to be a general consensus about not leaving it on no further action, and Councillor Peterson's suggestion of contacting servicemen's groups, wondering if the mover and seconder would like to, instead of saying no further action be taken, something in there about collaborating or
I'd be
I'm just
happy to
watching the
move maybe just an amendment that we seek a partnership with a appropriate body to invest, suss out their interest in trying to advertise this further in fundraise, and if there was community interest, then we would make a substantial contribution to it.
Okay. Who was the mover? Councillor Floyd. Are you happy to accept that as
That's good. Yep. No problem with that.
So motion now? Vanessa, have you got that? Councillor Peterson? Okay.
I think it's council seek partnerships with appropriate bodies, organisations to further investigate the issue, and that just keeps it afoot. Further investigate.
Are you happy with that?
Investigate the initiative.
Okay, Councillor Mileto.
A clarification, and I certainly agree with it. But in a day of correctness, why isn't it acknowledging grieving parents or?
My sense is that, not knowing the real history of it, is that the men were the ones that were away at war of these previous wars, and it was the women who were left at home. I don't know. I mean, it's a valid point, but that would be my.
It was more around the period, right? It's about recognising what the mothers did for our country as well, right? Sure, they had fathers, but I think it's more. Well, that's my opinion. I think it's more, yeah.
Chair, I could help with that. My memory tells me that there was an example as well that came with Councillor Taylor's motion.
Yeah.
Someone brought an example to you.
It's Ballarat. Ballarat's Avenue of Honour precinct, which depicts the mother of a 1920s clutching an image of her fallen son. The Ballarat Memorial is seen as a way of remembering the mothers who experienced the grief and deep anxiety of war.
Nice one. I didn't know the grieving mother.
All right, any other discussion? Everyone's clear on what the motion is now?
And I think, Madam Chair, if you allow me, it needs a champion. So we need to be the champion, right? When you put out these ideas, and we can't expect the staff to do all the work, we need to help champion the idea and through those organisations. Yeah.
In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Unanimous, thank you. Item 3.2. We have the report on the Rainbow Festival.
Happy to move the recommendation.
Councillor Mallard, can I have seconded by Councillor Evans? Excellent. Any discussion? Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question first of all. I couldn't see in the report when the festival is scheduled to be held.
Director Maunder.
You, Madam Chair, February, as I understand the exact date. As I look to my fellow director, I think it's February.
March.
I can certainly clarify it.
March, that's all right.
Late February, early March.
Be with the
somewhere around
ballpark.
there, yeah.
Yep. All right, that's great. Good that it's coming up.
The first quarter, councillor.
Thank you. Precise. Thank you very much, Director Maunder and Director Rob. Yeah, absolutely. Great to know this is going ahead. I know it's been in the works for a while. I think it's been sort of held up a bit, and I think Councillor McRae in the previous council was a proponent of this sort of event as well. And yeah, I think it's really important. Recent events have reminded me that transphobia and homophobia still exist in our community, unfortunately. We need to do what we can to support that community, to be allies, and to promote acceptance and inclusion. I think it's going to be a great event, and hope that we're going to have as many councillors out there engaging with it as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Any other discussion? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify about the grant funding, the 126K from the Our Region, Our Voice. In the supporting letters, it was talking about other projects that we're looking for under this grant, things like the upgrading the Orange Youth Hub and expansion of lighting infrastructure, headspace services, etc., as well as the Rainbow Festival. Is that money covering those things as well, or is it just for Rainbow Festival and maybe some other grant in the future for those other items?
Through you, Madam Chair, the total amount was about 880,000 that we were successful in achieving. This was just the funding. So we had to, when we submitted the 3 projects, we had to provide funding details for all the different elements. This is the cost for this component.
Any other discussion? Councillor Greenhalgh.
Yeah, I fully support this. I think this will be an absolutely fabulous event. Everyone in our community has the right to be themselves. And if we get the support of the local schools like we had for the Nutbush in the park, I think it's about educating this generation and about acceptance and breaking down that stigma and so forth. So I think this is going to be a great event, and it's definitely something I look forward to.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhalgh. Any other discussion? I would just like to speak to it too. I think it's a fantastic thing that we're putting on. I know COVID interrupted plans to hold it in previous years. I absolutely echo Councillor Mallard's sentiments that it is unfortunate that there is some hatred and discrimination out there in the community directed towards our LGBTQIA plus members. They are at risk of massively increased risk of every kind of violence that you can imagine. And I think this is a really good opportunity for us as a council and as a community to show that we do support every member of our community and that it is a safe place to live and grow up. So in that being that, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, raise an arm. Excellent. Councillor Peterson, are you?
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
yeah, no,
sorry, thank you. Unanimous. No matters arising. In that case, I'm going to close this Services Policy Committee meeting with the time being
8:03.
8:03 and hand back to Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. I'll resume the council meeting. We'll move on to 4.1, notices of motion, rescission motion. Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Whitten. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm quite happy to move this recommendation, this rescission motion, to be a formality so we can move on to 4.2. Formality so we can move on to item 4.2. And I just, we've got a lot of issues up there with the people can see. Look, I think the last weekend there was 2 schools there. Like I think there was Orange High School, and I think there was another school there as well. There was hundreds of kids there from graduations. And I do know my good friend here was up there straight under the bats how they were serving out sausage sandwiches for Mr Donato. So, and there's lots of sceneries up there. There's a fernery, there's a craft house, there's all those type of things up there that they think. And I know that the car club don't want to move. They want to stay in Cook Park.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other speakers?
Okay, I'll put the rescission motion. All those in favour? No, it's not. Did you put your hand up, Ken? Oh, you did, sorry. 4.2, notice of motion Cook Park 150 celebration. Councillor Duffy moving that way
Yes, thank you.
and seconded by Councillor Whitten.
With a minor adjustment, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow night with the Australia Day committee. They might vote that they want to move it down here, or there might be some other reason. But should that be the case, the matter can come back to council on the 19th of December for a final decision to be made on the date.
So could I just ask a question? So what we're saying here is that the 150th celebration be at Cook Park.
Yes.
If Australia Day is being held at Cook Park, it'll be in conjunction with that. If Australia Day is not being held at Cook Park,
we have
the Cook Park 150 celebration still be at Cook Park and wherever
Correct.
Australia Day is. Correct? I'm happy with that. Yep.
Can I just clarify, what are we bringing back on the 19th?
The decision from the decision date from the Australia Day committee, which is tomorrow night. Any other speakers? Yep.
Just a point of clarification and then a question. So does it need to come back though? Because doesn't point 2 allow for regardless of either way of what the meeting decision is? It says that if it's not at Cook Park, that's a contingency, isn't it?
Well, the only reason I can see, Mr. Chair, that you would bring it back is to get that agreed date
exactly
in point 2 sorted out.
Last time we were here,
Okay,
we were going to hear the Australia
thank you
Day
for that.
committee.
My question is around the legislation that we are bound by in terms of those huge hefty fines that we're all notified of if we are caught in breach of. If this gets up, if it goes ahead, staff will make sure that we're still abiding by that legislation and not having amplified sound and things like that. Is that?
Mr. Chair, Councillor, I have no intention of letting staff do anything that will attract such fines.
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks. Related to that, my question is actually the previous resolution we made at the last meeting was for the Australia Day committee to be given the opportunity to make a recommendation that would come back council. So Councillor Duffy's motion here says that the Australia Day committee are making the decision about what happens. We had an alternative resolution that was passed that says it's coming back.
Rescinded it. But the rescission motion got up. So that is dead. So now all you need is a resolution from the committee. A resolution. It doesn't need to be an endorsed resolution from council.
But point of clarification, wasn't the rescission motion only about the 150th?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Chair, you can resolve this by changing the word resolve to recommend. If we're going to get very specific, if you change that resolve word to recommend, we can proceed. It'll be exactly as printed, but the Australia Day Committee recommend for the Australia Day celebration. Committee recommends and the council. Yeah, if you change that word to recommend, then it's all...
He's happy with that.
Yeah, okay. That's what we're doing.
Yep. Any other speakers? Councillor Mallard?
Yep. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to move an amendment as well, and that's to add an additional point, and that is, and it goes to Councillor McDonald's question, that council authorises staff to make alterations to the timing or format of events in Cook Park to ensure our compliance with biodiversity protection laws and public health. If I can get a seconder for that, I'll just speak.
Happy to second.
Thanks. Yep. So I'm just proposing that we council resolve to make sure that we do make that commitment, that we need to plan the way any events that do go ahead in Cook Park happen so that they avoid that disruption. I acknowledge that those plans were made for the event that was cancelled the other weekend, that there were changes made. I just want to make sure we're signing off because I know we have had comments from councillors that basically suggest that they think we should be looking at moving the animals on. and we've been warned about our responsibilities. It's extremely, we can make this work. I'm confident about that, but I think it's really important that we make sure that we acknowledge those risks that we did talk about that led to the original recommendation for cancellation, and that we make sure that we're going to find the ways to work around those. Whatever the situation is, Australia Day is a long way off. We don't know what state things are going to be at that point, but we might need to make modifications, and I'm just saying, let's make the resolution that the staff are able to deal with that. Thanks.
I'll speak again. I'll speak against that because we just had assurance from the staff. We just had assurance from our CEO they were going to do that anyway. So I trust what the staff are going to do. I don't need to have a what did you call it? Amendment. So I'll be voting against it because I think the staff will do that anyway. Any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Kinghorn. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Just a question about the specifics of bat counting. We've obviously had bats in other years, and the issue this year is that their numbers are higher. Just had a few people speak to me about that, including people who are qualified or work with people who are qualified to conduct flora and fauna studies, suggesting that the bat numbers are actually not as high as have been made out. So I'm just curious about who counts the bats, how do they do it? Do they count one tree and then extrapolate it to the whole park? Do bats go back to the same tree every night? What do we know about the movements and the accuracy of the numbers that were given to us?
Who's the bat expert? We got Batman here? Or?
I'm not sure we've got anyone qualified in the room. We might have to take that on notice. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor, sorry. The bottom line, I'm going to speak against the amendment. Number one, because come 26th of January, if the Australia Day Committee support that, there may not be bats in Cook Park. Worry about noise. We don't have to worry about any of those things, and it's a good month and a half away. I can't see any need to make any decision right now, and I don't see any bat expert room anywhere. I don't see any lawyers in this room, but I do know the fact that I know that Currawongs kill them, I know that goannas kill them, and I know that eagles kill them. So it's that's and heat, express heat. So it's got nothing to do, as far as I'm concerned, with bats. The pub test says have it in Cook Park.
Any other speakers? There being no other speakers, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? Against? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Unanimous. I'll move on to general reports. Confirmation of the meeting of the 7th of November. I have a mover. Moved by Councillor Floyd, seconded by Councillor Houch. Speakers? Councillor Mallard.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just and thanks to the staff for clearing up the issues that we raised. I did want to note that I still have a concern relating to the greyhound matter and the change that's been made in the way that's recorded in the minutes. I know it records just that it was classified as confidential for a reason. We didn't make a decision about classifying it confidential, as I noted at the previous meeting. So I'm just going to indicate I'll be voting against accepting these minutes for that reason. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Mallard. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 5.2, Code of Conduct Complaint Reporting. Can I have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Floyd. Seconder, Councillor Greenhalgh. Any speakers? Councillor Duffy.
With the dopiest legislation in New South
Microphone, sorry, Councillor.
I'll start again. It is the dopiest legislation in the Local Government Act there ever is. Of course, state governments are going to bring this type of stuff in, so councillors fight amongst themselves with themselves and staff and all those type of things there. And it's really a kangaroo court. You have no right of cross-examination. You don't know who's going on. If you've got a real problem, mate, go across the road, put it over there, and let's sort the problem over there in a real court, not a kangaroo court like this is.
Thanks, Councillor Duffy.
really appropriate.
I've heard that comment from Councillor Duffy since he's been on council about
But-
code of conducts.
Okay, but the
Every
comment
time.
about going over the road isn't appropriate.
But he's going to the local
courthouse.
courthouse. He's not talking about
Okay,
going to.
then he
Robert-
needs to be clearer on that because it
Oh,
sounds
well,
like you're
I
going to meet
think
you at the
everyone
back
else-
shed.
Oh, yeah, good. I have a mover. We've got a mover and a second. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Unanimous. Late item 5.3, policy review, subdivision and development code. Can I have a
Move the
mover?
recommendation.
In a second, Councillor Mallard. Any speakers? Obviously, this is going back out on exhibition.
Yeah, and just to note, thank the staff. I see this one's going out for, I think it was 42 days, so it gives that.
Yeah, there
that time.
actually, I noticed something in there about that 42-day thing where it says, just give me 2 seconds, please.
Hope I didn't miss it. I changed it twice to a long
It says, it spoke about in the, so executive summary, a period of at least 28 days. So we're putting this on 42 days, right?
Yeah, again, because of
Yeah.
Christmas and New Year, that's
Yeah,
good.
same thing. Yeah.
I think I missed one number.
Yeah, that's what, well, you said at least. So we
Meant to
at least that word at least
It'll be
in there.
42. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The Chief Executive Officer will now advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
There have been no such submissions.
Thank you, Mr CEO. In accordance with Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of kind as referred to Section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in a confidential session of council meeting closed to the press and public. 6.1 Tender F4044/1 Lake Canobbla Sewer Pump Station, and 6.2 Tender F4131 Eucarina Road Work Resource Recovery Centre Stage 4 Construction Stage 1 and 2 Finishing Works are both classified confidential under provision of Section 10A/2 of the Local Government Act 1993, which permits the meeting to be closed to the public for business relating to C information that will be disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom council is conducting or proposes to conduct business with. Can I have someone move that we go in the closed? Thanks, Councillor Kinghorn. Seconded by Councillor Floyd. All those in favour? Unanimous. All. I think Councillor Evans would probably vote for it, wouldn't he? Or so.